She found the $40 million mistake before anyone else was awake. She didn't tell a soul. She just sat down and rewrote it in red ink. Tasha Monroe is 23. Black, blonde curls loose, a yellow dress and heels on the 41st floor. She is the executive secretary at the Kang Corporation, and she runs it better than the men who get the credit. She catches the crisis they sign their names to. She feeds the boss the answer he repeats as his own. The boss is Kang Dae-min. They call him the Quiet One. Tall, dark suit, a black dragon coiling up the right side of his neck. Cold eyes that make grown directors measure their words. Behind a closed door, his hand finds her jaw, and the cold disappears. Then the elevator chimes. The door opens, and she becomes Miss Monroe again. Furniture that happens to hold the paperwork. A man across the boardroom laughs and says she only has the job because she's pretty. Damon's jaw tightens. He says nothing, so she stands up for herself, and the room goes silent. That night, a friend's message lights up her phone. Someone who answers fast. Someone who actually shows up. This time, she types back, and she has no idea what one word will set in motion. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Tasha Monroe found the mistake on page 9 before anyone else was awake. She was already on the 41st floor, heels on, blonde curls loose, a yellow dress fitted to a body that turned heads she never asked to turn. The glass corner office wasn't open yet. She'd opened it. She always opened it. The contract sat fanned across the long table. 2 directors had signed it the night before, proud of themselves. Tasha read the clause twice, then a third time, slower. A single line, a penalty trigger buried under a payment schedule. If a shipment slipped past 90 days, the Kang Corporation didn't collect a fee. It paid $40 million. Hidden in plain sight. She set her tablet down. She didn't gasp. She didn't call anyone. She pulled the chair out, sat, and began to rewrite the clause in red ink, the way she'd learned to do at 2 in the morning when no one was watching, and the men who'd be praised for it were home asleep. The elevator chimed behind her. She didn't turn around. She knew the weight of those footsteps, the way you know a song from the first note. Kang Dae-min crossed the office without a word. Tall, dark suit, the collar of his shirt low enough that the edge of the dragon tattoo showed at the right side of his neck. Fine black ink, coiling up toward his jaw. He stopped at the table and looked at the page she was bleeding red across. Page 9, she said, still writing. How bad? 40 million if a ship is late. Han and Cho signed it last night. He leaned over her shoulder. She felt the warmth of him before she heard him breathe. His hand came to rest on the back of her chair, not on her, near her, the way a man touches something he's decided is his. They signed it, he repeated. They were happy about it. The corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. On Dae-min, almost a smile was a celebration. Fix it, he said. I'm fixing it. His fingers brushed the curve of her shoulder, light, deliberate. She kept her eyes on the page. The pen didn't stop, but something in her chest leaned back into the touch before her pride could catch it. You found it in 4 minutes, he said, low, near her ear. It took my legal team a week to write it. Your legal team gets paid more than me. My legal team didn't catch it. She turned her head then, just enough. His face was different up here, this close, with the door shut and the floor empty. The cold was gone from his eyes. What was left was something he showed to no one else, something almost soft, and she hated how much she lived for it. He bent. His mouth found hers, unhurried, certain. She let the pen rest. Her hand rose to his collar, to the warm skin under the dragon's tail, and for a moment, the 40 million, and the directors, and the whole glass building disappeared. The elevator chimed. He straightened before the doors finished opening. Not fast. Dae-min was never fast. He just became someone else, spine straight, jaw set, eyes gone flat and dark. He stepped back from her chair and turned toward the window as if he'd been studying the skyline the whole time. The cold rolled off him like a temperature change. Ji-hoon came in first, lanyard swinging, earpiece in, a tablet pressed to his chest. Behind him, a flush of junior staff carrying coffees and folders, the morning shift filling the floor. "Mr. Kang," Ji-hoon said. The 9 o'clock moved to 8:30. Dae-min didn't answer him. He looked at Tasha, and the warmth was a thing that had never existed. "Miss Monroe," he said, "why is the Daewon contract not finalized?" She felt the shift land in her body like a dropped degree. Same man, same office, same red ink under her hand. 2 words. Miss Monroe. And she was furniture again. Because it would have cost the company $40 million, Mr. Kang. Her voice was level. Professional. The voice she kept for the audience. "I'm correcting the penalty clause now. It'll be ready before the 8:30. See that it is." He walked past her toward his desk without looking back. The dragon disappeared under his collar as he buttoned his jacket. Tasha picked the pen back up. She'd done this dance 1,000 times. She knew the steps. Door closed. She was the only person he trusted. Door open. She was the secretary who hadn't finished the paperwork fast enough. She told herself it didn't reach her anymore. She told herself a lot of things at 8 in the morning. The pen pressed too hard on the next line and tore the paper. She got a fresh copy. By 8:20, she had the clause rebuilt, the penalty flipped, the schedule airtight. She walked it into the conference room herself and laid one copy at each chair. Han arrived, chewing the end of a pen, Cho behind him still loosening his coat. Neither of them looked at her. "The Daewon revision," she said. "Page 9. The penalty was reversed against us. It's corrected. Initial the change before you sign again." Han squinted at the page. His face went pale, then irritated, the particular irritation of a man who has just been saved and resents the savior. "This was always going to get caught," he muttered. "It was caught," Tasha said. "Initial the bottom." She didn't wait for thanks. There was never thanks. She walked back toward the floor and let the door swing shut behind her. And for 1 second in the empty hallway, she let her shoulders drop. 1 second. Then she straightened them again, because the glass walls saw everything, and a woman like her could not afford to be seen tired. Her phone buzzed. A friend. "Drinks tonight? You've earned them 3 times over." She almost smiled. She typed back, "Maybe," and slid the phone away. The morning ran the way her mornings always ran, too fast for everyone except her. She moved through the floor like she'd built it. She rerouted a supplier call before it became a fire. She caught a typo in a press release that would have embarrassed the family name. She reminded a director of his own daughter's birthday so he wouldn't forget it again. She was everywhere, and to most of the floor she was nowhere. A beautiful blur in yellow who somehow always had the answer when they needed it, and somehow never got the credit when they didn't. At 11, Dae-min called her into the office for the budget review. The door closed. The temperature changed back. "Sit," he said, and this time he pulled the chair out for her himself. They worked. This was the part no one saw. The two of them, heads bent over the same numbers, finishing each other's sentences. She'd point at a figure. He'd already be nodding. He'd start a thought. She'd land it. He argued with her. Really argued. The way he argued with no one else. Because no one else dared. And she argued back. And somewhere in the middle of a fight about quarterly exposure, he stopped and just looked at her. "What?" she said. "Nothing. You're staring. You're loud when you're right. I'm loud when you're wrong and too proud to say it." He let out a breath that was almost a laugh. He reached across the desk and tucked a curl behind her ear, his thumb tracing her jaw. "You should run this company," he said quietly. "I do run this company." She didn't look up from the page. "You just sign the parts I run." His hand stilled on her face. For a moment, he didn't say anything, and the silence had weight, like he was about to say a thing he'd never said. She felt it coming. She held still for it. Then the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Kang, the inspector from the Port Authority is in the lobby." The hand left her face. The The cold came down like a shudder. Send him up. He stood, buttoned his jacket, became Zhang, the quiet one again in the space of a sentence. Miss Monroe, bring the shipping manifests. She brought the shipping manifests. She stood at the side of the room while the inspector sat across from Damien, and she watched her own boss, her own whatever he was, talk past her, around her, never to her, as if the woman holding every document that mattered were a coat rack that happened to hold paper. The inspector asked a question Damien couldn't answer. Tasha answered it. The inspector blinked at her, surprised the furniture spoke, then turned back to Damien and thanked him for the clarity. Damien didn't correct him. She kept her face still. She'd had practice. When the inspector left, the door clicked shut, and Damien turned to her, and the warmth tried to come back into his eyes like it always did, like a tide that thought it could just return. You handled that well, he said. He thanked you. Does it matter? She looked at him, really looked. 41 floors up, the city spread out gold and small below them, and the most powerful man she'd ever known stood there, genuinely not understanding the question. No, she said, not yet. She didn't explain the yet. She gathered the manifests and walked out before he could pull her back, before his hand could find her waist and make her forget what she'd just felt in her stomach. The first cold edge of a decision she wasn't ready to name. Her phone buzzed again in the hallway. The same friend. Or dinner? My cousin keeps asking about you. He's a grown man with a real job, and he actually shows up where he says he'll be. Tasha stopped walking. She read it twice. He actually shows up. She thought about the inspector saying thank you to the wrong person. She thought about Miss Monroe. She thought about the second the elevator chimed that morning, and how fast a kiss could turn into a closed file. She thought about being 23 and brilliant, and somehow, every single day, becoming invisible the moment a door opened. She didn't text back. Not yet. But she didn't delete it either. She slid the phone into her pocket and let her thumb rest on its edge a moment longer than she needed to. The afternoon brought the board. The full board meeting was the kind of room where the family's money sat down to look at itself. 12 chairs, dark suits, the smell of cologne and old power. Tasha set the briefing packets at each place, then took her position near the wall behind Damien, tablet ready, the way she always did. Present, essential, uncounted. She knew the numbers cold. She'd built half the deck. When a director fumbled a figure, she fed Damon the correction without moving her lips, and he delivered it as if it had been his own. Across the table sat Walter Hahn. She'd never liked the way Hahn looked at her. Heavy-set, silver hair slicked back, deep-set eyes behind thin glasses, a gold ring on a finger that had never typed its own email. He looked at her the way a man looks at a vase he assumes was expensive, vaguely approving, fundamentally certain it cannot speak. The meeting moved. The day one contract came up, her save, the 40 million catch, and the room murmured approval. And Hahn, who had nearly signed the disaster, accepted the praise for the fix with a modest little nod. Tasha said nothing. She'd expected nothing. Then the discussion turned to the strategic review for the next quarter, and Damon, without turning around, said the words that changed her afternoon. Miss Monroe will walk you through the operational risks. She built the model. The room turned to her. For one strange, weightless second, she was seen. 11 faces, waiting. She stepped forward from the wall, tablet in hand, and the yellow dress caught the light, and she opened her mouth to begin. And Walter Hahn laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh. It was worse than loud. It was a small, comfortable chuckle, the laugh of a man who finds the world exactly as foolish as he expected. Forgive me, Hahn said, settling back into his chair, gold ring tapping the table. He looked around at the other men, inviting them to share the joke. I only mean it's a refreshing view, letting the pretty face present the numbers. His eyes drifted over her, head to heels, and back up. She does brighten the room. I suppose that's worth a seat near the boss. A few of the men smiled into their packets. One looked at the table. Hahn said nothing. Tasha felt the heat climb her neck. She kept her chin level. She waited 1 second for the only voice in the room that mattered. Damien sat at the head of the table, his back to her, his hand flat on the wood. She saw his jaw tighten, saw the small muscle jump beneath his ear, the place she'd kissed 100 times. She knew that flex. She knew the rage it was holding. He said nothing. The silence stretched. 1 breath, 2. The man who could empty a room with a look, the man who'd whispered you should run this company an hour ago with his thumb on her jaw, sat there and let it happen. Protecting her, he'd call it. Keeping their secret. Keeping the door closed. She understood, in that silence, that he was never going to stand up for her in front of an audience. So she stood up for herself. Mr. Hahn, her voice came out clear and unhurried, and it cut the room clean in half. She set her tablet down on the table with a soft, deliberate click. If beauty fixed spreadsheets, you wouldn't have called me at 2 in the morning last March to save the contract that's keeping your division open. The chuckle died on Hahn's face. You don't remember calling me, she went on. You'd had wine. You said, and I'm quoting, Tasha, I'm finished. They'll bury me. I rebuilt your numbers before sunrise. You walked into this room 3 days later and took a bonus for it. She tilted her head, polite as a blade. I never minded. I'm used to the room thanking the wrong person. She let that land. She watched it land. On Hahn, going gray. On the directors, suddenly very interested in their packets. On the back of Damon's neck, where the dragon held perfectly still. The operational risks are on page 4, she said, picking her tablet back up. Shall I continue? Or would the room prefer to keep discussing my face? No one spoke. She presented the risks. Flawlessly. 8 minutes, no notes, every number landing where it should. When she finished, the silence in the room was a different silence than before. The silence of men recalculating something they thought they'd already understood. Damon still hadn't turned around. The meeting ended. The directors filed out. Hahn last, not meeting her eyes. The door closed. And then it was just the two of them again, the way it always ended up. Alone in a room, the secret folding back over them like a familiar coat. Damon rose from his chair. He crossed to her. The cold had gone from his face, and the warmth was back, and his hand lifted toward her cheek the way it had 100 times, as if nothing in the last 10 minutes had cost anything at all. Tasha. She turned her face away. His hand stopped in the air between them. In the meeting, she said quietly, looking at the city instead of at him. I'm on my own. He laughed at me, and you watched the table. She finally turned to meet his eyes. Then the door closes, and suddenly, you remember you like me. I was protecting. Don't. Her voice didn't rise. That was what made it land. Don't tell me what you were protecting. I know exactly what you were protecting. It wasn't me. He went very still. She picked up her tablet, held it against her chest like a shield, and walked toward the door. Her hand found the handle. She didn't open it yet. I'm not angry, she said, without turning around. That's the part you should be worried about. She opened the door, stepped into the bright, loud floor where everyone could see her, and no one ever did, and let it close behind her. In her pocket, her thumb found the edge of her phone. This time, she typed back. Dinner sounds good, she typed. Tell your cousin I show up too. She hit send before her pride could talk her out of it. Then she stood in the loud, bright hallway and waited to feel something. Guilt, maybe. There wasn't any. There was only the strange, light feeling of a woman who has just opened a window in a room she didn't know was airless. She remembered the first night. Not the kiss. The fight before the kiss. It had been 14 months ago. A different contract, a worse meeting. A deal had collapsed in front of the whole board, and Damien had taken the room apart with 5 sentences and walked out. Everyone fled. She'd stayed. She always stayed. She'd found him at the window of the dark office, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled to the forearm, the dragon's tail showing where his collar hung open. He hadn't turned around. They're all afraid of you, she'd said. Good. It isn't good. She'd set a glass of water on the desk because he forgot to drink when he was angry. If you keep scaring everyone, no one will ever tell you when you're wrong. He'd turned then, looked at her like she was a sound he couldn't place. And you do? I'm paid to organize your schedule, Mr. Kang, not to feed your ego. The silence that followed had a different texture than the silence of the boardroom. She'd felt it change. She'd watched the most controlled man she'd ever met lose, for 1 second, the thread of his own control. He'd crossed the room. She hadn't moved. He'd stopped close enough that she could see the exhaustion under the cold, the thing he showed no one. Say it again, he'd said. You're wrong about people. They don't need fear. They need someone who isn't afraid of you. He'd kissed her like a man stepping off a ledge. That was the engine. Not money, not debt, not danger. Just a woman who told a powerful man the truth no one else dared, and a powerful man who'd never been told the truth by anyone he couldn't fire. The kiss became a secret. The secret became a habit. The habit became this: 14 months of doors that closed and opened, of a warmth that lived only in private rooms, of a man who would whisper you should run this company with his thumb on her jaw and call her Miss Monroe the second the elevator chimed. She walked back onto the floor and let the memory go. The afternoon was hers to weaponize, and she knew exactly how. She did it with elegance. That was the only way that worked on Damien. Loud got nothing from him. He'd built a life out of resisting loud. But quiet he leaned into, every time, because he thought he was the only one who knew how to use it. At 3, she laughed at something on her phone. Just a small laugh, just loud enough. 3 feet from his open door. His pen stopped. At 3:40, she took a call by the window. A real call, a supplier. But she stood where he could see her, tilted her head, and let her free hand touch the back of her neck the way a woman does when she's enjoying a conversation. He came to the doorway, pretended to need a file. At 4, she walked past his desk, and the perfume she never wore to the office moved through the room a half-second behind her. You smell different, he said, not looking up. His tell. Do I? You don't wear that here. I wasn't aware you kept inventory. She set a signed folder on his desk. Everything's done. The Day 1 revision is filed. The 8:30 notes are on your tablet. Why is everything done? Because I finish my work, Mr. Kang. She felt his eyes follow her out. By 4:30, his composure had a hairline crack in it, and she could see it the way only she could. The watch checked twice in 10 minutes, the second button of his cuff done and undone, the way his jaw set when her phone lit up on her desk, and she smiled at it and turned it face down. He buzzed the intercom. Miss Monroe, my office. She took her time. She brought her tablet, because the tablet was the costume of the secretary, and she wanted him to look at the costume and remember he was the one who'd made her wear it. Sit, he said. I'd rather stand. I'm leaving soon. His eyes came up. Leaving. It's nearly 5. You never leave at 5. No, she agreed. I don't. He set his pen down. The whole desk seemed to go quiet around it. Who's texting you? There it was. The question under all the other questions. Someone, she said. Someone. Someone who answers fast. She held his gaze, polite, unhurried, the same blade she'd used on Han. Someone who, when he says he'll be somewhere, is there. You'd be surprised how rare that is. The dragon held still on his neck. Everything about him held still. That was how she knew it had landed. Damon went stone when he was hit, the way other men flinched. You're playing a game, he said. I'm being honest. You should try it. It's freeing. She let the silence sit. She let him feel it. Then she picked her tablet up off the desk and walked out, because the thing she wanted him to understand wasn't that another man existed. It was that she did. That she existed when he wasn't looking. That a woman he could only love behind a locked door was a woman he was going to lose in the daylight. She went to the women's lounge on the 39th floor and changed. She'd brought the dress that morning, folded in a garment bag she'd hung in the closet like a loaded thing. Royal blue, fitted to the waist, falling clean over the hips, a color that did not whisper. She let her curls down full, fixed her lips, and looked at herself in the long mirror until the woman looking back stopped being anyone's secretary. Then she went to tell him she was leaving. The floor had thinned out. Past 5, the junior staff gone, only the late directors and the cleaners, and the hum of the building breathing. Ji-hoon stood near Daemin's door with his tablet, earpiece in, the way he always lingered when the boss was working late. She walked past him. He looked up. He looked twice. The dress did that, and then he looked quickly back down at his screen, ears going red, because he was 25, and loyal, and terrified of being caught seeing anything. She didn't knock. She never knocked. She opened Daemin's door and stood in it. He was at the window with his back to her, phone to his ear. He turned at the sound of the door, and the sentence he was speaking died in his mouth. She watched him take in the blue. He ended the call without saying goodbye. "You're dressed up," he said. "I always am. Not like that. I have a dinner." She stepped in, set the last folder on the edge of his desk. "Everything's finished. I'm leaving early." He looked at his watch. A reflex. A way to put a number between himself and the dress. There are still 2 hours left in the day, and I've done 4 hours of work in them. "Check your tablet." She smiled, small and even. "I want to leave early. I have a dinner." With who? A certain someone. She saw it move through him. The jaw first, then the hand, the right hand, the one that didn't know what to do with itself, curling slowly at his side. The dragon on his neck seemed to tighten with the muscle beneath it. "A certain someone," he repeated. "You don't need the details. It's after hours. It's my time." She tilted her head. "You're very good at reminding me which hours are mine and which are yours." For a long moment he said nothing. She let him have the moment. She'd dressed for this exact silence. Then she turned, unhurried, and walked out. She left the door open behind her. Half a foot, no more. The kind of open that looks like carelessness and isn't. She stopped just past the frame, in the dark mouth of the empty hallway, and she waited. She heard him cross the office. She heard the soft punch of a button. The intercom clicked on. "Ji-hoon." "Yes, Mr. Kang." And then, Daemin said it. Low, not loud. He was never loud. But with a current under it, she had felt only once. 14 months ago, the night his control had slipped, and he'd kissed her like falling. Cancel her date. A beat. The hum of the line. "Sir? Find out who's picking her up. The car, the name, the place. Tonight." His voice dropped further, until it was barely a voice at all, until it was the growl she'd never once heard him use on a board, or an enemy, or anyone alive. No man touches her. The hallway went very quiet. Out in the dim, Tasha stood absolutely still. Her heart was loud. Her face was not. She'd known he might say something. She had not known it would land in her chest like a stone going through ice. Through the gap in the door she could see Ji-hoon. He'd frozen, tablet half raised, mouth open on a word that wasn't coming. His eyes had gone wide. He looked at the intercom, then at the door, then, and this was the part that finished it, toward the hallway, where he could just see the edge of royal blue standing in the dark. He knew she'd heard. His face did the math of a young man realizing he is standing in the middle of something that is about to detonate, holding a tablet, with nowhere to put his hands. "Mr. Kang," Ji-hoon started. I'm not sure Did I stutter? "No, sir." Then, "She's still here." The silence that came down then had a different weight than any silence in the building that day. Tasha heard it from the hall. She heard Daemin understand. She didn't wait for him to come to the door. She pushed it open herself, slow, the full foot now, and stepped into the light of the office where he could see all of her. He was standing by the desk, hand still near the intercom, and for the first time in 14 months, Kang Daemin looked like a man who had been caught. "Say it again," she said. He didn't move. "You said it to him." Her voice was quiet, level. The voice she used when she was past anger and into the cold country on the other side of it. "Say it to me. Look at me and say it." "Tasha." "No." She crossed the room. Ji-hoon backed toward the wall, eyes down, trying to become furniture, the way she'd been furniture all morning. "You don't get to growl orders about my life through a machine and then say my name soft like that fixes it." You wanted me to react. You wore the dress so I would react. I wore the dress so you'd be honest. She stopped an arm's length from him, close enough to see the thing he showed no one. And you were, just not to my face, to the intercom. The dragon on his neck rose and fell with his breathing. You can't go out with another man, he said. Why? Because. His jaw worked. The word was right there, and he could not make it come out. Not in the open, not where it could be heard. Because I won't allow it. You won't allow it. She let the words sit between them, ugly and bare. Listen to that. Say it back to yourself. He was silent. I'll tell you what I heard just now, she said. I heard a man who can't say stay, but can say, no man touches her. I heard a man who'll cancel my dinner, but won't claim my name. I heard yours. She nodded toward the intercom. Yours through a closed door. Yours when there's no audience. The second one of those board members walks in tomorrow. I'm Miss Monroe again, aren't I? I'm the pretty one who's good with the contracts. That's not. It is exactly what it is. She wasn't loud. She never had to be. You want me to belong to you in the dark and stand against the wall in the light. You want a woman you don't have to explain. Ji-hoon had stopped breathing. He stood pressed to the wall with his eyes fixed on the carpet, holding the order he'd been given like a live thing. And she felt almost sorry for him. Almost. Caught in the wreck of a thing he'd never wanted to witness. Daemin took a step toward her. The warmth was rising in his face, the warmth he saved for closed rooms, and she understood with a clean and terrible clarity that he was about to try to fix this the only way he knew how. Don't, she said. Don't reach for me. Not in here. Not after that. His hand stopped. You think you protected something tonight, she said. You didn't. You just showed me the exact shape of the cage. It isn't a cage. What is it then? It's... He stopped. The word protection was on his mouth. She watched him taste it and find it suddenly thin. Go on, she said softly. Say protection. Say it out loud, and listen to how it sounds standing here in your office, with the door I had to come back through. He said nothing. She picked her clutch up off the desk. She'd set it down without him noticing, the small blue bag matching the dress, and the gesture of lifting it was the gesture of a woman who was, in fact, still leaving. His name is the date you tried to cancel, she said, and you don't even know what it's for. She turned for the door. Tasha. She stopped. She didn't face him. Where are you going? To the dinner you wanted called off. She looked back over her shoulder, royal blue and steady, the most powerful man she knew watching her go, and unable to say the one word that would have made her stay. Don't have me followed. If you do, you'll have answered my question for me. She walked out. Ji-hoon flattened himself against the wall to let her pass, and she paused beside him, just for a second, because none of this was his fault, and he was the only honest face left in the room. You did the right thing, she told him, low, telling him I was here. He swallowed. He's not going to like that I... No, he isn't. She almost smiled. Welcome to my whole life. Then she was in the elevator, blue dress, blonde curls, the doors sliding shut on the 41st floor, and the man standing in the middle of his glass office with the truth he couldn't speak and the order he couldn't take back. The car dropped past the lit-up city. Her reflection rode beside her in the dark glass, composed, certain, alone. Her phone buzzed in the blue clutch. She didn't expect it to be him. He'd never once texted her first. That was a daylight thing, a thing that left a record, and Daemin did not leave records. It wasn't him. It was the friend. He's at the restaurant. Corner table. Says he's been looking forward to this for 2 weeks. Calm down. He's harmless. It's just dinner. 2 weeks. Tasha read it twice. She'd told herself, all afternoon, that the dinner was a weapon. A blue dress and a phone held face down, and a man's name she wouldn't give up. A lesson she was teaching Daemin about the cost of keeping her in the dark. But the dinner was real. The man was real. He'd been waiting 2 weeks. And as the elevator's mirror gave way to the lobby's gold light, and the doorman moved to open the door onto the cold, bright street. Tasha realized she did not actually know what she was walking into, only that, for the first time in 14 months, she was walking toward a table where a man had saved her a seat, out loud, in a room with the lights on. She stepped out into the night. The car was already waiting at the curb, so was the rest of it. The restaurant was the kind that didn't put its name on the door. Tasha knew it anyway. Everyone in the city who'd ever sat across a table from money knew it. Low light, dark wood, a maitre d' who measured your worth before he measured your name. She gave Marcus Bell's name and watched the man's posture change. "Of course," he said. "Mr. Bell is waiting. Corner table." She followed him through the room in royal blue, and she felt the eyes. She always felt the eyes. The difference, tonight, was that none of them belonged to a man who would call her Miss Monroe in an hour. Marcus stood when he saw her. That was the first thing. He stood, pushed his chair back, came around the table, the cream of his suit catching the candlelight. He didn't reach for her. He offered his hand the way one professional offers it to another, firm, brief, his goatee neat, his smile easy. "Tasha Monroe," he said, "2 weeks I've been trying to get this table. So I heard. Your friend talks too much." He pulled her chair out. "Sit, please, before you decide I'm trouble." She sat. He sat. A waiter came and went without being asked. There was water poured, a candle between them, and on the table beside Marcus's plate, a slim leather portfolio she clocked the second she sat down. She'd spent 14 months reading what men put on tables. "You didn't bring that for the wine list," she said. Marcus laughed. A real laugh, surprised out of him. "No," he said. "I didn't." He didn't open it. Not yet. He let it sit, and she respected that. A man who knew the difference between offering and pushing. He asked her about the city, and he asked what she ate. He told her, without making it a speech, that he ran operations for a company 3 names below the Kang Corporation, and that climbing was the whole point. "I've watched your work for a year," he said. "You haven't seen my work. My name isn't on it. That's how I knew it was yours." He turned his glass a 1/4 inch. "The day one renegotiation, 6 months ago, whoever rewrote that penalty clause saved a company $40 million and didn't sign a thing." He met her eyes. Men who save 40 million put their names on it. The rewrite was clean, no fingerprints. So I asked myself, who in that building does the work, and let someone else hold the pen? Tasha didn't answer. The candle moved on the table between them. "It took me 3 calls, Marcus said. 3. Everyone gave me the same name and then told me she was just the secretary. The 3rd one laughed when he said it. He leaned back. I stopped laughing on the 2nd. She answered with half of herself. The other half stayed at the elevator. Because the other half was waiting to be interrupted. She kept her eyes from the door. She didn't check her phone. But under the table her foot was angled toward the exit, and every time the maitre d' moved through the room her shoulders set. Just slightly, the way a body braces for a sound it's already decided is coming. It came at the soup. She heard the room change before she saw him. A drop in the conversation near the front. A waiter stepping aside too fast. The particular hush of a space recognizing a predator. She didn't turn. She didn't have to. Kang Dae-min crossed the restaurant the way he crossed every room he'd ever entered. Like the floor had been waiting for him. Marcus looked up. "Friend of yours?" "No," Tasha said. "My employer." Dae-min stopped at the edge of their table. Dark suit, no overcoat, the dragon riding the line of his collar, and his eyes did the thing she'd seen them do to men who'd lied to him. They went very, very still. "Miss Monroe," he said. The word landed exactly as she'd known it would. Miss Monroe, in a room with the lights on, in front of a man who'd stood to greet her. He reached for the title like a shield. "You followed me," she said. "No, you're here. I was in the neighborhood. You don't have neighborhoods, Mr. Kang. You have territories." She set her spoon down without a sound. "Sit or leave. You're letting the cold in." Marcus rose. He didn't bristle. He extended his hand to Damien the same way he'd extended it to her. Calm, unhurried, a man with nothing to prove because he already had the portfolio. Marcus Bell, he said. Damien looked at the hand. He did not take it. I know who you are, he said. Then you know this is a business dinner. Something flickered across Damien's face. He hadn't known. She watched the assumption he'd built all afternoon. A man, a date, a rival in a suit, crack down the middle and not yet fall. Tasha, Damien said. Quiet. Come with me. No. We need to talk. We talked. You did it through an intercom. Marcus glanced between them once and read the whole story in a single pass. He picked up the leather portfolio and tucked it under his arm. I'll give you the room, he said. To Tasha, only to her. 2 minutes or 20. I'm not going anywhere. Some things are worth waiting 2 weeks for. Then he stepped to the bar, easy, and left them the table and the candle and the wreck. Damon took Marcus's chair. He sat the way he never sat in his own office. Forward, elbows near the cloth, the control held together with visible effort. You wanted me to come, he said. I wanted you to be honest. Coming here isn't honest. Coming here is hunting. You wore the dress. You let Ji-hoon see you. You stood in the dark by my door. And you growled an order about my body to a 25-year-old with an earpiece. Her voice stayed level. The cold country. Don't you dare make this mine. He reached across the table. His hand found her wrist, and the touch was the warm one, the closed room one, the one she'd leaned into 100 times before her pride could stop her. She lifted her hand away, slow, final. No, she said. You don't get to do that here, Tasha. You don't cancel my dinners. You don't decide who touches me. You don't own a woman you won't even name in your own elevator. She leaned in, and her eyes were wet and steady at the same time, a thing he had never once seen on her. You want to protect me. Fine. Tell me what you think you're protecting me from. Men like him. He stood up when I walked in. She let that sit. When was the last time you stood up for me in front of anyone? His jaw moved. Nothing came out. You're trying to keep me in a pretty drawer, she said. You take me out when the door's locked. You put me back when the board walks in, and you call the drawer protection. It isn't protection, Damien. It's a shelf. I'm a thing you don't want broken and don't want seen. That's not what you are to me. Then say what I am, out loud, in this room. He didn't. His eyes went to the bar instead, to Marcus, easy on a stool with the portfolio under his arm, then back to her, and she watched the math run behind the cold, the man, the suit, the 2 weeks, the dinner. He's been calling you for 2 weeks, Damien said. Yes. You said nothing. You'd have canceled it. She didn't blink. You did cancel it. You sent a boy to find his car. A muscle moved in his jaw. To keep you safe. From dinner. She laughed, and it came out wrong, cracked at the edge. You sent Ji-hoon into the night to protect me from a salad and a conversation. Do you hear yourself? Do you hear what you're afraid of? I know what men want. You don't know what I want. You've never once asked. She put both hands flat on the white cloth. 14 months, Damon. You know how I take my coffee. You know which claws I'll catch before I catch it. You know the sound my heels make in your hallway. You don't know one thing about what I want for my own life, because you've never let my life leave your floor. The candle burned between them. Somewhere across the floor, a glass touched a glass. He looked at her like a man standing at the same window he'd stood at 14 months ago. The night she'd told him the truth no one dared, and she watched the old reflex rise in him, the only way he'd ever known to answer her. He stood. He crossed the foot of space between them, and before she could say the thing already forming on her mouth, he took her face in both hands and kissed her. It was not the kiss of a locked office. It was frightened. It was jealous. It had 2 weeks of a man he'd never met in it, and an intercom, and the whole long afternoon of watching her turn her phone face down. His hands shook against her jaw. The dragon moved at his throat. And God help her, she kissed him back. For 3 seconds she forgot the room. She forgot the lights, the candle, the man at the bar with the portfolio. She kissed Kang Dae-min the way she'd kissed him in the dark 100 times, because she loved him. Because that was the cruelest part of all of it. Because the cage was warm, and she'd lived in it willingly. Then she pulled away. She put her palm flat on his chest and pushed, gentle, certain, and stepped back out of his hands. "No," she said. Her voice broke once and she let it. "Don't you do that. Don't use a kiss to end a conversation. That's the most honest you've ever been with me, and you only did it because there's another man's coat on the chair. Tasha, sit down. You want to know what the date is? Sit down and I'll tell you." He sat, slowly, the most controlled man she'd ever met, lowering himself into a chair because she'd told him to. She picked up the candle's reflection in her water glass and steadied her own breath in it. Then she looked at him. "His name is Marcus Bell. He runs operations for a company you've been crushing for 3 years. She nodded toward the bar without turning. "That portfolio under his arm is an offer. Director of Operational Strategy. His company. My name on the door. My title spoken out loud in every meeting, by every person in the building, the first day I walk in." Dae-min went stone. She watched it happen the way she'd watched it happen in his office. The stillness that other men called calm and she knew was impact. The hand on the table flattened. The breath stopped behind the dragon. "You thought the danger was a man's hands," she said. "You sat in your glass office and pictured someone touching me, and it made you growl into a machine. That's the only kind of losing you know how to be afraid of." She leaned in. "The danger was never his hands, Dae-min. The danger is me sitting at this table, realizing I could grow somewhere I don't have to hide. The danger is a stranger offering me, in one dinner, the thing you couldn't give me in 14 months. A name, a door, a chair somebody pulls out." The candle guttered between them. "He sees me," she said. "You feel me. There's a difference. And it took a man you've never met 2 weeks and a leather folder to teach it to me." Damon's mouth opened. For 1 second, she thought it would come. The word, the claim, the thing she'd dressed for, fought for, waited 14 months in the dark for. "Stay," he said. Just that. The word he could never say to the intercom. And it was almost enough. It was so close to enough that her chest ached with how close. "Stay isn't a title," she said softly. "Stay is just another locked door with a nicer handle." She stood. She gathered the blue clutch. The most powerful man in the city sat at a corner table he'd invaded and could not get up. Because for the first time, he understood that the thing he'd been guarding had not been hers to lose to another man. It had been his to lose to his own silence. "I haven't said yes to him," she said. "I haven't said no, either. Tasha, I'm going to finish my dinner." She looked at him, royal blue, blonde curls, eyes bright and unbeaten and breaking all at once. "And you're going to leave. And tomorrow I'm going to walk onto your floor and be Miss Monroe again, because that's the only name you've ever let me have in the daylight." She walked to the bar. Marcus straightened, read her face, and asked nothing. "Where were we?" she said, and her voice held, barely. "Director of Operational Strategy," Marcus said. He set the portfolio on the bar between them and did not open it. "Whenever you're ready. No expiration. A door doesn't close just because you didn't walk through it tonight. You don't even know if I'm good in a room. I know what you do to a contract no one asked you to read." He finally opened the folder, turned it toward her, slid it the last inch. 1 page. A title, a number, a date she could start. "I don't need to watch you in a room. I read page 9. Tasha looked at the number, then at the title, then at the empty line at the bottom where a name would go. Her name, out loud, on a door, the first day. She did not sign it. She did not push it away. Behind her she heard the chair push back. She heard the room go quiet again as Kang Dae-min crossed it the other way, toward the door, toward the cold, without her. She did not turn around to watch him go. She sat at the bar in a dress the color of a thing she would not apologize for, with a stranger's offer beside her elbow, and the taste of the man she loved still on her mouth. And she understood that she had reached the bottom of it. Loved in the dark, wanted in private, offered a whole life, out loud, by a man who'd known her for one dinner, while the man who'd known her for 14 months had crossed a room to claim her and left it claiming nothing. The door opened somewhere behind her. The cold came in, then it was gone. Marcus slid a fresh glass toward her. "Take your time," he said. Tasha looked at the portfolio. She looked at her own reflection in the dark mirror behind the bottles, composed, certain, alone, the way she'd ridden down 41 floors. She'd spent her whole life being the one who stayed, the one who opened the office, the one who found the mistake on page 9, while the men who'd be praised slept. For the first time, she let herself imagine being the one who left. And she did not know, sitting there in the low gold light with 2 futures on the table and no way back to the one she'd had that morning, that the man who'd walked out into the cold was not driving home. He was already deciding to do the one thing he'd never done in his life, out loud, in the light, in front of every name that had ever called her a pretty secretary. But that was tomorrow. Tonight there was only the bottom of it. And Tasha Monroe sat at the bottom with a glass she didn't drink and a door she hadn't walked through, more alone than she had ever been with a man's offer at her elbow. The red dress was a decision she made at 6 a.m., with her eyes still swollen. Tasha stood in front of the closet and did not reach for navy, did not reach for the gray that made her invisible in a room of dark suits. She reached for red, fitted, certain, the color of a thing that refused to be missed. If today was going to be another daylight of Miss Monroe, she would at least be the loudest, quiet woman in the building. She did not know it was the last day she'd wear that title. The 41st floor was already moving when she stepped off the elevator. That was the first wrong thing. The boardroom doors were open. Ji-hoon stood outside them, lanyard straight, earpiece in, and when he saw her, his face did something quick. Relief, guilt, a warning he had no words for. "They're waiting for you," he said. "Who's waiting?" "Everyone." She walked toward the glass. Through it, she saw the long table full. Directors, legal, 2 men from finance, who only came when money was on fire. Walter Hahn at the far end with his signet ring and his thin glasses, his face arranged into the small cruelty he wore like cologne. And at the head of the table, standing, not sitting, Kang Dae-min. She stopped with her hand on the door. "Routine," the schedule had said. "Quarterly review." She'd expected to stand at the wall and take the notes no one thanked her for. She'd dressed in red for a fight she thought she'd have alone. Dae-min saw her through the glass. He didn't beckon. He simply waited, the way the floor always waited for him, and the dragon rode the line of his collar, and his eyes were not still this morning. They were burning low and even, like a man who'd been awake all night and had stopped pretending otherwise. She opened the door and went in. "Miss Monroe," Walter said, before she'd cleared the threshold. "We were beginning to think the help had quit." A few of the directors smiled at their water glasses, the old reflex. Tasha felt it land and let it slide off the red. "Sit," Damon said. Not to her, to Walter. The room blinked. Walter's smile thinned. "I beg your—" "Sit down, Director Hahn." Walter sat. Damon did not look at his notes. There were no notes. He stood at the head of a table worth more than some nations, and he looked at one woman in red by the door. And when he spoke, his voice was the closed-room voice, the one she'd thought lived only behind locked doors. 14 months ago, he said, I hired a secretary. Nobody moved. That's what the contract says. Executive secretary, salary band 4. The paper is a lie, and everyone in this room who has done a single hour of real work in 2 years knows it's a lie. He began to walk, slow, the length of the table. The Day 1 penalty clause, $40 million. 2 of you sat in this room and missed it. His eyes touched the finance men, who found their cuffs fascinating. She caught it in a contract she was told to file, not read. She rewrote it on a Sunday. No name, No credit. She let me take it to the board as mine. Walter shifted. Mr. Kang, surely this isn't the venue. The Seo acquisition. Damon didn't stop walking. The leak that would have cost us the northern ports. She found it. A phone number in a vendor file that didn't match a vendor. She brought it to me at 2 in the morning, because the smartest person in this company is the one who answers her phone at 2 in the morning. He reached Tasha's end of the table. He stopped. Every clean quarter you've applauded me for, he said to the room, not to her, was her hand. Every disaster you didn't know existed, she killed it in the dark before it reached your inbox. You called her beautiful. You called her the help. One of you. And here his eyes found Walter and held him like a pin through a moth, told a full board she was here because of her face. Walter's jowls went the color of old paper. Her face. Damien let the words sit and rot. If a face fixed a $40 million clause, Director Han, your face would have done it in 20 years and it never did. Someone at the table exhaled too loudly. Tasha stood very still in red and felt the room turning under her like a floor she'd mopped becoming a floor she owned. I have a single item for this meeting, Damien said. He turned and walked back to the head of the table, and only when he reached it did he pick up the one piece of paper that had been waiting there face down. He turned it over. Effective today, the position of Executive Director of Strategic Operations is created at the Kang Corporation. Full board seat. Full authority over contracts, acquisitions, and risk. He set the page down. It is filled. There was never a search. He said her name then. Not Miss Monroe. Tasha Monroe. The room came apart into noise. Not loud. The rich don't get loud. But the rustle of a dozen powerful people recalculating their futures at once. Walter half rose, and under it, Tasha heard her own pulse, because he had said her whole name, in the light, in front of all of them, and the saying of it had cracked open something 14 months of dark had welded shut. But he wasn't finished. She could see he wasn't finished. He'd come to the edge of the thing he did best, power, titles, the cold transfer of authority, and he'd stopped, because the next sentence was not a business sentence, and he had never once in his life said it where anyone could hear. His hands found the edge of the table, the most controlled man in the city, holding wood to stay upright. And there's a second thing, he said. Damon, a voice from the doorway, low, polished, cold. Kang Sua stood in the open door, in sober matriarch gray, pearls at her throat, the jade ring on her hand, her hair in its perfect chignon shot with silver. Tasha had met her twice, both times across a distance designed to remind her of the distance. A word, Sua said, outside now. No, mother. The room stopped breathing entirely. You will not. Sua stepped in, and her voice never rose, which made it worse. I have watched you build something your father bled for. I will not watch you announce a... Her eyes went down the red dress and back up, slow, surgical, a feeling, in front of the board, like a boy. Sit down, mother. Please. He said please. He had not said it to Walter. You taught me to protect what matters. You taught me to never let the family see a weakness. His jaw moved. I'm done calling her my weakness. She is your secretary. She is the spine of everything you're proud of. He looked at his mother the way Tasha had only ever seen him look at men who'd lied to him, except there was no threat in it, only a terrible finished calm. You taught me to keep the valuable things behind glass. I kept her behind glass for 14 months. I almost lost her to a man who put her name on a door in one night because I was too much of a coward to put it on mine. Sua's mouth opened. The jade ring caught the light as her hand closed. You will regret this in public, she said. I regretted the silence in private every single night. He turned from his mother. He turned to Tasha. That was the regret that was killing me. And then, Kang Daemin crossed the room one more time. The last time he would ever cross a room to reach her without the right to. and he stopped an arm's length away, in front of his mother, in front of Walter Hahn, in front of finance and legal, and the whole daylight he'd hidden her from, and he spoke so the cheap seats could hear. "This is Tasha Monroe," he said. "She is your executive director, and she is the woman I love." The word love went off in the boardroom like a window breaking. Sua made a sound, small and sharp. Walter's signet ring clicked against the table. But Tasha didn't hear any of it clearly, because the man who'd called her Miss Monroe across 14 months of glass had just said the other word, in the only place it had ever mattered, the light. She should have felt triumph. Instead, her eyes stung, and she made them stop, because she would not cry in red in front of Walter Hahn. "You can't simply," a director began. "I own this company," Damien said, not loudly. "I can simply." He looked only at her now. The room was furniture. "I should have done it in the elevator," he said. "I should have done it the first time someone called you the help. I did it through an intercom instead, like a coward. And I sent a boy to ruin your dinner, because I'd rather control the world than be honest in front of it." A breath. "I'm not asking you to forgive the drawer. I'm telling this room there isn't one anymore." Tasha held the back of the nearest chair, knuckles pale against the leather. "You named me," she said, quiet, but the room caught it. "After 14 months, on the day a stranger handed me a door." "Yes. You'd never have done it if Marcus Bell hadn't sat across that candle." He didn't flinch from it. "Maybe not. I'm not going to lie to you in front of these people to make it cleaner. He showed me what I had by being willing to take it. I owe the worst man in my week the thing I should have found on my own." His eyes didn't leave her. "That's the truth. You've never accepted less from me, and I'm not going to insult you with less now." For a long moment, she didn't answer. The morning light came across the table and laid itself over the title page with her name on it, and she looked at her own name printed in the daylight, on company paper, where everyone could see. Then she looked at the empty chair to the right of the head of the table, the director's chair, the one nobody had ever told her she could sit in. She did not sit in it. Not yet. "I have a dinner tonight," she said. The room, which had been certain it understood the ending, went still in a new way. "Tasha," Sua said, scandalized. "I told Marcus Bell I'd give him an answer." Tasha's chin stayed level. "I keep my word. I always have. It's the only thing in this building that was ever fully mine." She looked at Damon. "I'm going, tonight. And you're not going to send Ji-hoon. You're not going to be in the neighborhood. You're not going to invade the room. You're going to sit on your floor and trust me, for the first time in 14 months, to choose." She watched it cost him. Every muscle in him was built to control the room, and she was asking him to leave one uncontrolled, with another man's offer in it, with her in red on the far side of the city. "All right," he said. Just that. The hardest 2 words she'd ever heard him say. She turned and walked out of the boardroom in the dress the color of a thing she would not apologize for, and behind her she heard nothing. No growl, no order, no boy sent into the night. For the first time, he let her go without a leash. She rode 41 floors down with her own name ringing in her ears, said out loud, at last, by the man who'd hoarded it in the dark. The restaurant put no name on its door tonight either. Marcus Bell stood when she came in. Cream suit, neat fade, the easy smile, the leather portfolio on the table beside his plate, exactly where it had been. He read her face the moment she crossed the room. Marcus read faces for a living, and something in his settled. "You came," he said. "I keep my word." "I know." He pulled out her chair. "That's half of why I want you." She sat. The candle was the same, but she was not the same woman who'd come here last night, with another man's silence wrapped around her throat. She'd come last night to be seen. She'd already been seen this morning, in red, in front of his whole world. Marcus slid the portfolio the last inch toward her, the way a man lays down a card he's confident in. "It's still open," he said. "Better than open. I moved the number. After watching the most dangerous man in the city follow his secretary into a restaurant, I figured I'd underpriced you. He opened it. One page, a bigger number, the empty line for her name. Director of Operational Strategy, my company. Your name on the door the first morning. No intercoms, no glass. I'll introduce you to the room as my equal and mean it. It was everything she'd said out loud the night before. Every word of the wound, answered. Tasha looked at the page. She looked at the empty line. Then, she did something she had not let herself do in 14 months. She thought about what she wanted, not what was safe, not what was loyal, not what was owed, what she wanted. It's a good offer, she said. An honest one. You're an honest man, Marcus, and I don't say that about many men in suits. I hear a but coming. Not yet. He waited. Not yet, she said again, and her voice was steady this time, certain, the cold country gone soft at the edges. Not no, not yes, not yet. She closed the portfolio gently and slid it back the single inch. This morning, in front of his board and his mother and the man who called me the help, he said my name out loud. He named me director of his company, and then he named me something else, in the light, where it cost him everything it could cost a man like that. Marcus exhaled slow through his nose. He nodded once, a man taking a loss the way she'd known he would. Clean, no fingerprints. He found his spine, Marcus said. He had a spine all along. She almost smiled. He found his voice. There's a difference, and it took a man he'd never met 2 weeks and a leather folder to teach it to him. She put her hand flat on the closed portfolio, warm, almost grateful. You didn't lose tonight. You woke a thing up. I'd have stayed in that drawer another 14 months if you hadn't put a door in front of me. So thank you, truly, for reminding me what I'm worth. That's a expensive lesson for me to teach for free. Send him the invoice. She stood. He owes you. He said so himself. Marcus laughed. The real one, surprised out of him a second time. He rose and offered his hand. Firm, brief, professional. The same hand he'd offered the night before to a woman he'd thought he could hire. The door doesn't close, he said. Mark my word, men like him are honest exactly once. The day he forgets your name again, you call me. The number only goes up. I'll remember page 9. She left him standing at the candle with his portfolio and no signature. She did not feel like a woman walking away from a future. She felt like a woman handed a choice and making it herself, with no one's hand on her wrist. He was on the floor when she came back. The boardroom was dark. The directors gone, the mother gone, Walter Hahn gone with his signet ring and his paper-colored face. Only the corner office glowed, and the city behind the floor-to-ceiling glass, and Kang Daemin standing at the window where she'd told him the truth 14 months ago. He turned when he heard her heels. He'd know the sound anywhere. He'd said so. You came back, he said. This is my floor too now. She crossed to him and read, Apparently I have a chair. He didn't reach for her. He'd learned that much in a day. He waited. I have terms, she said. Name them. The title is real, not a gift you can revoke when we fight, and we will fight. Executive Director, full board seat, my authority is mine. She held up one finger. The door stays open. Not metaphor. The actual door. When I walk onto this floor, I am not Miss Monroe to anyone, ever again, in any light. A second finger. And the next time someone in a meeting calls me beautiful instead of right, you don't defend me, I defend me, you just don't sit there and let it be the last word. Done. No hesitation. All of it. And one more. Her voice dropped. The closed room voice, except they were going to keep no more closed rooms. Never again a secret. Not in the elevator. Not in front of your mother. Not at 2 in the morning when it's only us and no one's watching. If you love me with the lights on, or you don't get to call it love at all. He looked at her for a long moment. the dragon at his throat, the city burning gold behind him. "I named you in front of the board because I was afraid to lose you," he said. "I'm going to name you every day because I want to. That's the difference I owe you. I'll spend whatever it takes paying it." Then he reached for her, slow, asking, giving her the whole second to say no, and when she didn't, he kissed her. The lights were on, the blinds were open. 41 floors of city could have looked up and seen the boss of the Kang Corporation kissing his executive director against the glass, and for the first time, he did not care who saw, and that not caring was the gift she'd waited 14 months in the dark to be given. She kissed him back in the light, and this time she did not have to forget the room. The room could watch. Let it. The next morning, the boardroom filled the way it always did. Directors, legal, finance. Walter Hahn in his usual seat. Quieter now, his signet ring still. Tasha Monroe walked in last. Red dress, blonde curls, planner under her arm out of habit, though she'd never need to take another man's notes again. She did not go to the wall. She did not stand. She crossed to the right of the head of the table, to the chair no one had ever told her she could sit in, and she sat in it. "Good morning," she said. "Let's begin. Director Hahn, page 9. And every name in the room that had once called her the help said her title back to her, out loud, in the light, the way it would be said from that morning on. He found the restaurant before she'd finished her first glass. Tasha didn't hear the door. She heard the room change, the small drop in conversation that followed Kang Dae-min into every space he entered, the way water goes still before something heavy breaks the surface. She set the glass down. She did not turn around. In the dark mirror behind the bottles, she watched him cross the floor. Dark suit. The dragon riding the line of his collar. The maitre d' moved toward him and then thought better of it. The way men always thought better of it. Marcus saw him too. Marcus, who read faces for a living, read this one and went very calm. He didn't reach for his glass. He didn't sit back. He folded his hands on the bar and waited. The way a man waits at a table when the stakes have just doubled and he has no intention of folding. "Friend of yours?" he asked. "My employer," Tasha said. The word landed wrong in her own mouth. 14 months, and that was still the only word the daylight allowed her. She watched it cross the bar and reach Marcus, and she watched him file it away. A fact, a tell, a thing to use later. A waiter drifted toward Dae-min with a leather menu and stopped halfway, sensing weather. He retreated to the wall. The whole room had begun, quietly, to retreat to the wall. Dae-min stopped, 3 feet from the bar. He did not look at Marcus. He looked at her, and the cold he wore in boardrooms was gone, burned off somewhere between the 41st floor and here, and what was left underneath was worse. A stillness so complete it had teeth. "Outside," he said. "No." The room held its breath. "Tasha." Low, a warning shaped like her name. "You sent a boy to cancel my dinner." She turned on the stool then, slow, royal blue against the gold light, and met him at eye level for the first time all night. "And when the boy froze, you came yourself. From your tower, in your suit, to stand in a public room and tell me what? That you're leaving with me. On whose authority?" It stopped him. She watched it stop him. The man owned half the freight that moved through the northern ports, and he had no answer to a question he'd never been asked, because no one had ever made him say out loud what he was to her, where another person could hear it. Marcus rose quietly. "I'll give you the room." "Stay," Tasha said, without looking away from Dae-min. "Sit down, Marcus. This won't take long." Marcus sat. "You don't get to clear my table," she said to Dae-min. "You don't get to clear my night. You cleared my name off a contract you took to the board as your own. You cleared my name off the room every single time a door opened. You are very good at clearing my name, Dae-min. It's the one thing you've never once failed to do." His jaw moved. The muscle there she knew better than her own pulse. "Not here," he said. "Yes, here." She stood off the stool so he couldn't loom. Heels. The red soles of nothing. Tonight it was blue, fitted, certain, a dress that refused to be a secret. You wanted to do this in public badly enough to drive across the city, so we do it in public. You growled into an intercom that no man touches me. Say it to my face, in the light, where the waiter can hear you. Tasha, say it. No man touches you. Quiet, final. The intercom voice, except there was no machine to hide behind now, only the open air of a room with witnesses. That's true. It was true at 2 in the morning, and it's true here. And in the daylight, she said. On your floor? When Walter Hahn calls me the help and you study your cufflinks? Who touches me then, Damon? Because it isn't you. In the daylight, I belong to no one. I'm a salary band and a planner, and a beautiful problem you store in a drawer. The word drawer hit him visibly. You keep your valuables behind glass, she said. Your watches, your art, me. You taught me the rules without ever saying them. Loved with the lights off, erased with the lights on. A pretty drawer you call protection. Her voice didn't rise. It went flatter, harder, the way steel goes when it's done bending. I am so tired of being protected. Protection is just a nicer word for hidden. I kept you safe. You kept me convenient. It cracked the air between them. Somewhere, a fork was set down and not picked up again. A woman 2 tables over leaned toward her companion and stopped pretending to whisper. You let your mother call me the girl, Tasha went on. The list came out of her now, even and low. 14 months of it, filed in order the way she filed everything. You let Walter Hahn call me the help to a full board, and you read your phone. You introduced me to the SEO delegation as the assistant. I caught the leak that saved your ports, and you sent flowers to the office floor with no card, because a card has a name on it, and a name is a record. Tasha, I kept the flowers. Her voice didn't break. That was the worst of it, how it didn't break. 3 days, on my desk. The only gift you ever gave me that the daylight was allowed to see, and you made sure even that couldn't say who it was from. Damon took a step. Just one. Close enough now that she could see his hands. The controlled man, the calm man, and his hands were not calm. They opened and closed at his sides like he was looking for something to hold, and finding only the space where she usually stood. You think I don't know what I did, he said, and his voice dropped to the place only she had ever been allowed. You think I sat in that tower and didn't count every time I called you Miss Monroe and watched it cost you something. I counted. I have counted for 14 months. Then why? Because the second they know what you are to me, you become the way to hurt me. The words came fast now, the damn giving. Do you understand the men I deal with? The first weakness they find, they aim at. I have buried people for less than knowing where I keep what matters. I kept you off the record because the record is where my enemies read. So you hid me to keep me alive? Yes, and it never once occurred to you, she said, to ask me whether I'd rather be safe in your drawer or free in my own name. He had no answer. She watched the truth of it move across his face, that he had decided her safety the way he decided a deal, alone, in the dark, with her consent assumed and never sought. There it is, she said softly. You decided. You always decide. You decided I was a secret, the same way you decided the Day One clause. Strategy, risk management. You managed me. She picked up her glass. She didn't drink. She held it the way a person holds something, just to have a place for the hand. I'm not a risk you manage, Damon. I'm a woman. And tonight a man I barely know looked across that candle and offered me a door with my name on it. Out loud, the first morning, and do you know what undid me? Not the title, not the money. Her breath caught and she made it hold. He said my name like it was safe to say, like saying it didn't cost him anything, like the only natural thing in the world was to want me where everyone could see. The glass trembled. She set it down before he could see. Damien crossed the last of the distance. It was not asked. He took her face in both hands, those hands that buried men, that opened deals, that had touched her only ever behind locked doors, and he kissed her, hard, desperate, 14 months of daylight silence breaking against her mouth at once. The room gasped. Somewhere Marcus looked away with the grace of a man who'd lost something cleanly, and Tasha let it land. For 1 second she let it, because her body had learned him before her pride had learned better, and his mouth was the closed room she'd lived in for over a year, warm and certain and hers. Then she put her hand flat against his chest and pushed. Not weakly. She pushed him back an arm's length, and she stayed his hand when it tried to follow, fingers closing around his wrist the way he'd never once let her in public. "No," she said. He went still. "That's the drawer," she said, breathing hard, eyes bright and unbeaten, and wet all at once. "Right there, that kiss is everything you've ever given me, true and hidden, and only because someone else reached for the handle." She let go of his wrist. "You're not kissing me because you finally want to be seen with me. You're kissing me because he might. You're not jealous of losing me, Damien. You're jealous of losing what's yours. There's a difference, and I have wanted to hear you know it for 14 months. Tasha, you came to stop a dinner." Her voice steadied, terribly calm now. "You didn't come to claim a woman. You came to recover an asset before a competitor closed." The word competitor turned him toward Marcus at last. The first time all night he'd acknowledged the other man existed, and Tasha saw the exact moment Damon took in the cream suit, the easy build, the leather portfolio sitting closed on the bar between 2 glasses, and read it for what it was. "Who are you?" Damon said. Not loud, the voice that ended conversations. Marcus stood, unhurried. He extended a hand that did not shake. "Marcus Bell. Operational Strategy, Halverson Pacific. A beat. Your competitor, since you used the word." Damon didn't take the hand. He looked at it the way he looked at a clause that didn't belong in a contract. "Halverson doesn't move freight in my corridors." "We will." Marcus let the hand drop, unoffended, a man who'd been refused worse. "We're opening a northern desk in the spring. We needed someone who could read a contract the way other people read a clock." He glanced at Tasha, and there was nothing predatory in it, only respect, which was somehow harder for Damon to watch. "I came to this city to hire one specific person. I found her at the bottom of your org chart, filed under secretary, fixing your mistakes at 2 in the morning for a quarter of what she's worth. So I offered her a directorship, my company, her name on the door." He picked up the portfolio and held it, not opening it, the way a man shows a card without playing it. "She hasn't signed," Marcus said. "She wouldn't, while you were still in the room. That's the part you should be afraid of, Mr. Kang, not me. Her decency. She's loyal to a man who's never said her name in daylight." He set the folder back down. "I just offered her a daylight." The restaurant was silent now. The other tables had given up pretending. "You found her at the bottom of my org chart," Damon said slowly. The words came out of him like he was learning them. "Filed under secretary. Salary band 4, Marcus said. I pulled it the day I flew in. You pay her like a clerk, and you bet your company on her judgment. I've seen a lot of ways to undervalue a person. That one's almost art." Something moved behind Damon's eyes. Not anger. Anger he knew. This was the other thing. The slow horror of a man hearing his own arithmetic read back to him by a stranger, and finding it indefensible. He turned to her. "Is that true? Band 4. You signed the paper," Tasha said, 14 months ago. "You've signed it again every year since." He had nothing. The man who had an answer for every room in the city had nothing. Damien looked at the closed portfolio on the bar. He looked at the empty line he couldn't see but knew was there, waiting for the only signature in his world he could not command, threaten, buy, or bury. For the first time since Tasha had known him, the boss, the blade, the quiet one who decided the fate of rooms before he entered them, Kang Dae-min looked at something he could not control, and she watched the thing arrive in him. Late, devastating. True, it was not the kiss that broke him. It was the line. The empty line on a stranger's page where her name would fit, in the light, the first morning, the exact thing he had withheld for 14 months because he was too much a coward to put it on his own door. Another man had done in one dinner what he could not do in a year, and the danger had never been Marcus Bell. The danger had never been an enemy reading a record. The danger was that he might lose her, and that he would lose her not to violence, not to a rival's strength, but to his own silence. Because he had never once found the courage to recognize, out loud, what every contract she'd saved and every 2 a.m. phone call already proved. She was the spine of everything he'd built, and he had let the whole world call her the help. Tasha. His voice had changed, stripped, the strategist gone, and under it a man she'd glimpsed only in the dark, never in a room with the lights on. Don't. She held up a hand. Not cruel, tired. Don't do it here. Like this. Cornered, with his offer on the table forcing your hand. If you say it now, I'll never know if you meant it, or if you were just closing a deal before a competitor. I'm not closing a... Then prove it. She picked up her small bag from the bar. Go home. Don't send Jihoon. Don't sit outside in the car. Don't have someone watch which way I walk. Her chin stayed level. For one night, let me be a woman with 2 doors and no one's hand on her wrist. If you can do that, if you can stand to not control this one room, then maybe tomorrow we find out whether there's a version of you that can say my name where it costs you something. He stood between her and the night, every instinct in him built to take the choice off the table, to decide it the way he decided everything. Fast, alone, final. She watched him fight himself, the hardest deal of his life, and the other party was his own hand. All right, he said. 2 words. They cost him more than $40 million ever had. He stepped aside. Tasha walked past him through the silent room, blue against the gold light, and she did not let herself look back, because if she looked back, she'd see his face, and she'd already given too much of herself to that face for one lifetime. Behind her, she heard nothing follow, no order, no growl, no boy sent into the cold. For the first time in 14 months, Kang Dae-min let her leave a room without a leash, and the not following was the closest thing to a confession he had ever made. Marcus caught up to her at the door, easy, no hurry. That was the bravest thing I've watched a person do in a long time, he said, walking out on the most dangerous man in the city, and the second most dangerous, I suppose, if I'm being kind to myself. I didn't walk out on anyone. She pushed through into the cold. I walked into my own name. There's a difference. There usually is. He stopped under the awning, hands in his pockets, the offer still warm between them and unsigned. The door stays open, Tasha. Mark my word, whatever he does tomorrow, whatever speech he's writing in that tower right now, you remember that someone offered you the light first and asked for nothing but your signature in return. I'll remember, she meant it. She walked into the dark of the city alone, and she felt the bottom of the night beneath her like a floor she'd mopped 1,000 times. Except this time, she was the one who decided who stood on it. Somewhere above the street, 41 floors up, a light came on in a corner office and stayed on all night. He did not call, he did not send a car. He sat at the window where she'd told him the truth 14 months ago, and he did the one thing his whole life had taught him never to do. He stopped managing, and he started deciding what it would cost to be honest in front of every name that had ever called her a pretty secretary. And Tasha Monroe rode home in a taxi with a stranger's offer in her bag, and the man she loved finally, terribly silent behind her. And she did not yet know that the silence was not surrender. It was him learning, for the first time, how to say her name out loud. She woke before the alarm and chose the red. Not the navy that read as competent. Not the gray that asked permission. The red, fitted, certain. The color of a woman who had stopped waiting for a room to make space for her. She did her hair the way she liked it, full and loose. And she did her lips, and she looked at herself a long time in the mirror of a 1-bedroom apartment that the daylight had never once been ashamed to see. The portfolio sat on the counter, Marcus's offer. Unsigned. She put her planner in her bag and left it there. The 41st floor was already full when she arrived. Quarterly review. The long glass room. The city behind it. The whole board assembled. And more than the board. She saw it the second the doors opened. Kang Sua, at the far end in pearls and jade, the mother, summoned. Walter Hahn in the middle seat, glasses catching the light, gold ring tapping the table. This was not a meeting. This was an audience. Tasha set her planner at the side console where the secretary sat, where she always sat, outside the table, against the wall, in the row the daylight allowed. Miss Monroe. Damon was standing at the head of the room. Dark suit, the dragon at his collar, the cold she'd known for 14 months, and underneath it, something she didn't recognize, something that had not slept. "Sir," she said. "Not there." He looked at the empty chair to his right, the chair no secretary had ever sat in. "Here." The room shifted. Walter Hahn's ring stopped tapping. She did not move. "That's not my seat. It is today." She crossed the room in heels, red against the gray glass, and she sat in the chair to the right of the most dangerous man in the city, and she folded her hands and she waited, because she had learned a long time ago that the people who win the room are the ones who can sit in silence longer than anyone else. Damien did not sit. "Before we begin the quarterly," he said, "there's a correction to the record." Walter Hahn smiled the smile of a man who assumed the correction was someone else's. "Of course." Damon set a folder on the table. He did not open it for show. He had memorized it. Tasha could tell, because his eyes never dropped. "The Day One clause," he said. "Fourth quarter, last year. The board approved it as my work. It wasn't. Miss Monroe caught the indemnity gap at 2 in the morning and rewrote it before the wire cleared. It saved this company $11 million. The room went very quiet. "The CO delegation," he went on. "We were 40 minutes from losing the Northern Corridor over a translation in the freight terms. Miss Monroe caught it, not the legal team. Her." He turned a page he didn't need. "The port leak. The one we never announced, because announcing it would have moved the stock. Someone inside was feeding manifests to a competitor. I had 3 people on it for a month. Miss Monroe found the man in 4 days, off a discrepancy in a fuel log nobody else thought to read." Walter Hahn's smile had gone somewhere to die. "Every contract this room has signed in 14 months, Damon said, "has passed through her hands before it reached mine. Every one. You have all been doing business, gentlemen, with the judgment of the woman you call the secretary, and you have been calling her the secretary. Damon." Kang Sua's voice was quiet and cold and used to obedience. "This is not the place. It's exactly the place." He didn't look at his mother. He looked at the board. "It's the only place. Everything I've ever done wrong by this woman, I did in this room. So I'll undo it here." He turned to Tasha. "Effective today, the position of Executive Director of Strategic Operations reports to me and to no one else. The salary is corrected to the band the work has always deserved, backdated 14 months. A pause. "The name on the door is Tasha Monroe." She kept her hands folded. She had practiced not reacting in this room for over a year, and the practice held even now, even as something hot pressed behind her eyes that she refused to let win. Walter Hahn found his voice. "On what basis? She has no degree in..." "She has $11 million in saved indemnity and a corridor we'd have lost without her," Damon said. "Bring me your basis, Walter. Lay it next to hers. We'll let the room decide which one of you should keep his chair." The gold ring did not tap again. Tasha looked at the man at the head of the room and understood that this was real, that he had stood up in the one place that frightened him, the place where his enemies read the record, and he had written her name into it in permanent ink. The title was not the gift. The title was the proof. But she did not stand. She did not thank him. Because she had been in this room long enough to know that a title was the easy part for a man like Kang Dae-min. The title was money, and money was the thing he understood. There was a harder thing, and she would not move until she heard whether he had the courage for it. He saw her not move. He understood why. Of course he understood. He had read her at 2 in the morning for 14 months, and he read her now. "There's one more correction," he said. "Damon." His mother's hand flattened on the table. "Whatever you are about to say, do not. You raised me to protect what matters by hiding it," he said. And now he did turn to her, the matriarch in her pearls. You taught me that the things you love become the things they use against you. You were right. I believed you for 31 years. Sua's jaw set. And you live because of it. I live alone because of it. He let that sit in front of her. There's a difference. You never taught me that one. I had to learn it last night. From a stranger who offered her a door I was too much a coward to open. He looked away from his mother. He looked at the room, all of it. Every face that had ever watched him erase her. Tasha Monroe is not my secretary, he said. She has never been my secretary. She is the woman I love. She has been the woman I love for 14 months, and I have spent every one of those months calling her by the wrong name in this building, because I told myself I was keeping her safe. No one breathed. I was keeping her hidden, he said. There's a difference. I learned that one too. Kang Sua stood, slow, regal, the full weight of the family behind her voice. You will not do this. Do you understand what you are handing your enemies? A name, a face, a way in. You will put a target on her the moment this leaves the room. Then the room had better stay loyal. Damien did not raise his voice. He never did. Because anyone who carries this out as a weapon will discover what I do to people who reach for what's mine. A beat. And anyone who stays will discover what I do for the people who stood in the room the day I finally got something right. This is sentiment, Sua said. Sentiment is how empires fall. No, he held her eyes. Silence is how empires fall. I almost lost the spine of mine because I was too proud to say her name out loud. You taught me to protect what matters. I'm protecting it now, by putting it where the whole world has to respect it, instead of where only I get to touch it. He inclined his head, the smallest gesture, final. Sit down, mother, the correction stands. For a long moment, the matriarch did not move. Then she gathered her jade and her pearls, and the cold armor of 40 years, and she sat. Not in surrender, Tasha saw, but in the strategic patience of a woman who would fight this later, in private, the way her kind always did. It didn't matter. The thing had been said. You cannot unsay a name in a full room. Damien turned to Tasha one last time. That's all of it, he said. Quiet now, just for her, even with the room listening. Every correction I owe you, on the record, where I should have made it a year ago. I'm not asking you to answer. I know there's an offer in your bag with another man's name beside a clean line. I'm not going to stand between you and it. Not anymore. He sat down, finally, in his own chair, at the head of his own table, beside the empty space that was no longer empty. Now, he said to the board, in the flat voice that ran the city, the quarterly. Director Monroe will present the corridor numbers, since she's the one who saved them. And Tasha Monroe stood up at a board table for the first time in 14 months, in a red dress, with her name finally in the record, and presented the numbers in the steady voice of a woman who had always known them cold. She still went to dinner with Marcus. She owed him that, and she owed herself the proof that she could walk into the light on her own legs, and not just because a man had finally cleared the way. The restaurant was quieter than the bar had been. No witnesses this time. Just the offer, warm and patient, on white linen. He named you, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. The city moved fast. News of the 41st floor moved faster. In front of the board. The mother too, I heard. That must have cost him. It cost him everything he was raised to be. And here you are. Marcus turned the unsigned folder a quarter turn toward her. Easy, no pressure. Which means my offer just got a competitor with home field advantage. So let me make it clean. He met her eyes. Halverson, Director of Operations. Your name on a glass door in a building where no one has ever once called you the help. A salary that isn't a correction of an old insult. It's just what you're worth, from the first day, with no history to forgive. A pause. And a man across the table who said your name like it was safe to say, the first morning, before you'd saved him a dime. She looked at the folder a long time. She thought about the drawer, about 14 months of flowers with no card, about a chair against the wall and the cold word Miss Monroe dropping in the air every time a door opened. She thought about how much of her wanted to sign just to never feel that again. And then she thought about a man standing up in the one room that frightened him and writing her name into permanent ink with his enemies watching. "You reminded me of something," she said. "Last night. I want you to know that. I'm listening. For 14 months I let myself believe that being hidden was the price of being loved. You sat across a candle and offered me a door with my name on it, and you asked for nothing but my signature, and you broke that belief in half." She put 2 fingers on the folder, not to open it, to slide it gently back across the linen toward him. "You reminded me what I'm worth. And the second I remembered, I stopped being someone who'd sign a contract to escape a man instead of choosing one." Marcus didn't reach for the folder. "That's a no. Not yet," she said. "But thank you for reminding me of my worth." "That's not nothing, Marcus. That's the whole thing, actually. You gave me the price I refused to keep accepting less than. I'm going to go collect it." He smiled, and there was no defeat in it, only the clean respect of a man who'd made a good offer to a person too whole to need it. He picked up the folder and tucked it into his jacket. "The door stays open," he said. "I told you. Mark my word, if he ever puts you back in a drawer, you have a directorship and a glass door waiting, and I'll have it warm." "He won't." She stood, red against the candlelight. "And not because I trust him, because I'm not going back as a secret. I'm going back as a director who sets her own terms." "There's a difference." "There usually is," Marcus said. "You taught me that one." The corner office was lit when she came back. He'd left it lit for her. Every lamp. The lights of a man who had decided, finally, to be seen. He stood when she walked in. He did not cross the floor. He had learned that, somewhere in the last day, he let her come. "You didn't sign," he said. "I didn't sign," she said. "And I'm not here because you named me either, so don't get comfortable." "I wouldn't dare." She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch, and neither of them did. "Not yet." "Terms," she said. "We do this once, and we do it clear. The title is real, and it stays. I don't go back in the drawer the first time your enemies sneeze. My name is on the record, in every room, in the daylight. You never call me Miss Monroe again unless I've earned a reprimand, and then you call me director. Done. When your mother fights this, and she will, you don't manage me out of the room to keep the peace. You bring me into it. Done." And the door, her voice held, the office door, the car door, every door, it stays open. I am never again the thing you keep behind glass. If you can't love me in the light, with my name on the record, and the whole city watching, then you don't love me. You collect me, and I am done being collected. He looked at her, the woman who had told him the truth at 2 a.m. 14 months ago, the spine of everything he'd built. And for the first time since she'd known him, Kang Dae-min looked perfectly, dangerously happy. "Done," he said. "All of it. On the record." Then he said her name. Just her name. Tasha. Out loud, in a lit room, with the door open and the whole bright city watching through the glass. And he said it the way Marcus had said it, the way the daylight was finally allowed to hear, like it was the most natural thing in the world to want her where everyone could see. And this time, when he kissed her, the lights were on. She did not push him back. The next morning she walked into the long glass room before he did. The board rose when she entered. Walter Hahn, a half-second slow, but he rose. She took the chair to the right of the head of the table, the one with her name on the plate now, and she set down her planner, and she waited for the most dangerous man in the city to come sit beside the woman he had finally, out loud, chosen. He came. He sat. He said, "Director Monroe will open," and Tasha Monroe opened the meeting in a room that knew her name, not whispered, not hidden, not stored behind glass, but spoken in the full light by the one man who'd spent a year too afraid to say it. She had spent 14 months as a secret. She would spend the rest of them as the truth, in plain sight, chosen out loud. If you want to watch all the stories without any ads and also get access to bonus scenes, extended epilogues, and exclusive spicy chapters, head over to our Patreon. Scan the QR code on the screen The link is in the description or in the pinned comment. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been the one who fixed everything behind a closed door, only to become invisible the second an audience walked in? Have you ever loved someone who wanted to keep you, but never had the courage to claim you out loud? And when someone finally named your worth across a table, did you have the strength to stop accepting less? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, recognition, and love spoken out loud, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.